I am so curious to hear, what is your favorite thing about yourself as a leader and an entrepreneur?
I have to say that I love that you asked this question. And I noticed from other interviews, like, okay, I got to be ready for that question. And I think my favorite thing about myself, at least today, is my willingness to do things differently. Probably because it's been so hard earned. Like I have from day one, earliest memories of myself, been someone who does not necessarily fit into the mold or feel really good in the status quo. And for so much of my life, that caused me some level of pain.
Welcome to the Radical Discernment podcast. I'm Jen Hanover, your host. I am a mindful productivity teacher, and I am obsessed with helping founders and entrepreneurs and creatives create more peace in their lives by way of their standards. And when I met Katie Wight, I was instantly like, okay, this is an incredible founder, an entrepreneur, but also a really cool human. And she has done what so many of us want to do. So welcome, Katie. I'm so happy and so honored to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations. It's just over a year of this podcast for you, right? I'm stoked
Yes.
to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been so fun. And as you know, I mean, it's crazy. And I think that's what a little bit of what we're here to talk about today is the journey of being a founder and being an entrepreneur. And we're going to keep it nice and tight today too, because we've got about 30 minutes. So I wanted to start by introducing you briefly. So you are the founder of Strong Brand Social, an incredible company. I'm a client, which is how I found you. And it's funny because I was prepping like our show notes and I was like, okay, you help scrappy, bootstrapping founders and entrepreneurs align their social media strategies with their business goals. And I love that I can say that just from being on calls because you're so clear on that and you're so clear on your mission. So I would love if you can please introduce Strong Brand and your mission and start there.
Yeah, I mean, you've done such a great job. Thank you. Yeah, Strong Brand Social is exactly that. We work with mostly bootstrapping, family-owned companies. Our mission is really to give, we see so much is wrong with the marketing industry. And so our mission really is to give family-owned brands and independently owned brands like an equal playing field to play on, right? We don't have the same resources and we don't actually need them. And a lot of the education that's out there, a lot of the guidance that we're getting is not tailored to us. It's either tailored to creators or Meta's business model and what helps them. Or maybe we follow like larger marketing institutions for information, but a lot of that content is tailored towards really big budgets. And so, yeah, our mission is to equal the playing field and give folks real tangible traction in less time with the resources that we actually have.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. I can say that I have learned so much and implemented so much since starting with Strong Brand. And it's cool actually. So if you're watching this, Katie could absolutely take you to school on social media and all of these things, like every single time we're on a call. What I love is how much I'm learning, but then I'm also looking at the room and like even your team is like constantly just like, wow, like it's so it's such a dense subject. However, today we are not here to talk about social media. We're here to talk about you and your founder's journey and the way that I absolutely love to start these sessions because leading from the heart is something that you and I have really connected on. We got to have our call a few months ago, and it was something that we were just, I mean, we could probably sit here and talk for a very long time about how founders and entrepreneurs really need to be connected to themselves. And it's so cool. Even as I say that, I'm like a little nervous and I can just like feel myself kind of like dropping into what is really, really important. So what I love to do is start these conversations with some self-love, some self-appreciation. And I am so curious to hear, what is your favorite thing about yourself as a leader and an entrepreneur?
I have to say that I love that you asked this question. And I noticed from other interviews, like, okay, I got to be ready for that question. And I could get emotional. Like, if I was asked this question 5 years ago, like, what would I say? Would I have anything? I think it has been a journey. And so I think my favorite thing about myself, at least today, is my willingness to do things differently, probably because it's been so hard earned. Like I have from day one, earliest memories of myself, been someone who does not necessarily fit into the mold or feel really good in the status quo. And for so much of my life, that caused me some level of pain, right? Especially being sort of raised to like seek validation outside of myself. There was a lot of many years where this was more of a problem than something I liked about myself, because as I sought validation for ideas or things that I wanted to do differently, I was met with the like, no, you can't do that. No, you sound crazy, right? That's not how it goes. And so, but now I look around, I think about 5 years ago, I was like committed to quitting that. It's been quitting, like looking for validation and feeling like there's something wrong with me if I want to do it completely differently. And it's a practice, but now I look around and I'm like, the life that I'm living today is beyond my wildest dreams. And there's no way I would have gotten here if I didn't just start saying like, this is one of my favorite things about myself, actually. Like, tell me I can't do it and then watch me, So yeah, that's where I'm at today.
You do things differently, and it has brought you to where you are.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about you is similar in that line, because it's interesting, the way that, like what you just said, how we're conditioned, especially as women, to be humble and to not really give ourselves the credit, that we deserve, and start to externally source that validation. And it's a fascinating connection, because the thing that I love the most about you showed up, I would say it was like on like the first or second call, like very, very early on. And you were teaching, and you're so passionate. I mean, you're always so present. I've told you that I love that about you. Like you show up, you're prepared, you're like watching the interviews before the interview. It's so cool and it's so refreshing. And when you are teaching, there's like the child of Katie Wight comes through your face and your eyes. And it's so fucking beautiful. Like and I'm always like sitting there like smiling, and you're doing your thing and you're teaching, but I just really sit back and I look at it and I'm like, wow, that's such a cool connection, that your favorite thing about yourself is something that was almost kind of attempted by culture, by society, as it is with everybody, to be conditioned out of you. But yet here you are sitting with this incredibly successful company and this amazing team. There's so much respect, there's so much integrity with you guys that I love so much. And you're showing up as this young, passionate, but there's like an innocence to it, that when you're doing your thing, which is what I try to help people do, is like, let's all do our thing that we're really passionate about. Yeah, I think it's like between 8 to 12 years old is what I kind of see.
Yeah.
And
I feel like you're trying to make me cry.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, that is something like I guess I have been working on alongside the like do it differently, is just
Yeah.
A lot of like connecting to the joy and connecting to yourself. You can't do that unless you're like, what would make 8-year-old Katie proud? Like nothing else matters. So I love that you're picking that up. That's the best compliment.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I think especially as a founder, like we have this kind of, we're leading a team and we're trying to set an example, and to allow the child to show up and be so present and so passionate and just so sincere and genuine. Huge fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Okay. So you have done the thing. You've launched your online offer. You have a community that brings people together, is financially successful and fulfilling for you and your incredible team. You are living the dream, Katie Wight, checking off the Japan bucket list and being able to take the time for yourself. So first of all, good for you. I think we've covered that, but I'm so happy for you. And I think it's important to pause and just be like, whoo. So if you could please walk us through your founder's journey at a high level. I think there are a lot of us out there right now who are actually kind of wondering why the hell we continue to show up to this thing day after day. So I'd love to hear a bit more of your story.
Yes. I've asked that question many times. So it's actually interesting, I love what I do now, but the aspects that I love about it are working with founders, proving it can be done differently. I love communication. I love creative. But the truth is, I got my first job in social like almost 15 years ago. And I was never from the get-go like a social media fiend. That's just not. And so I remember when I first started my agency, it really I started as a content and social media marketing agency, and it really was the story of just not being able to tolerate being inside an organization or organizations that consistently undervalued me. I mean, that was really the impetus and the, to get me started. And I remember being like, are you really going to do this? Like, you're a little lukewarm on social, and it was like, this is the next step for me. These are the skills that I have. And I will take one step and then I will take another, and we will continue to listen to ourselves and turn it into something, right? And so today I look back 9 years later and it's like, it's so much more of what I would have wanted to build than that initial, marketing agency. So that's really cool. And so much of our positioning and the way we do things and the way we help our clients win really is true to that original, like we can do it in a way that feels better. So the agency, I founded in 2017, and then 2020, I had 4 employees by that time. I think we were around $500,000 in revenue at that time. And then COVID hit and 80% of our revenue was slashed. And it was like, how am I going to keep my team on, like, how are we going to stay employed? And I had been sort of thinking in the background, like, because at that time I had mostly bigger corporate clients and I really wanted to help small businesses. Like, so many people get into business, and a lot of marketers were like, we want to help small businesses, but they at that time, didn't have the budget to afford our services. But online education was like definitely not new at that point, not as big as it is now. So it was always in the back of my mind, and that was the plan, was like within 3 weeks of like lockdown, we had launched fully the first course, the sales page, the ads were live that day. It was like 3 weeks or less. Granted, it was based on almost a decade of experience, so it wasn't like so. And then, things just really took off, and we started saying, like, just in conversation with our customers after that first course, what do you want? We'll build it for you. What do you want? We'll build it for you. And you and I have talked about how that left me quite burnt out a couple years, or, within a year of that. It was funny because in 2020, I was just glad to have something to do. So many people were laid off. So it was like work around the clock. I was feeling lucky for that. But eventually that was totally unsustainable. And so the last few years have really been an exercise in like leadership and discipline and doing less as a means to do more. And yeah, what else do you want to know? That's the high level. Yeah. Today, I mean, Strong Brand Social is, we have trained over 25,000 brands in our primary workshop. Wow. 25,000 brands have learned the S3 system. And we have hundreds of incredible clients and a lot of really great client wins. So those are kind of the highlights.
I love it. And yeah, it's a perfect segue actually, because what we had ended up talking about on our call, it was actually a really cool moment. And that was the moment that when I was like, okay, I would love to get you on a call and just ask you about your journey. You had mentioned that you had, just the day that we had our call, that you had a really emotional moment, and you had talked about, so I'm hearing like all of like the, like the milestones and the launches in the agency and like the client component and everything. And you said, I really made it through the long period of time. I'm quoting from our call. I made it through the long period of time where I felt so susceptible to quitting because I was so burnt out and so overwhelmed. And then you pause and you were like, and I was so unhappy. You then go on to say that your Yang approach may have gotten you to where you are, but that you had a turning point and you needed to look yourself in the eye and admit that it was not sustainable. So I'm curious about the story of why that different approach was necessary for you and how you show up differently now.
Yeah, thank you. So, it was necessary because for me, I know some people who love to work. Right. Like I have some colleagues and and some advisors. It's like they want to be working. That is what is fun for them. And I want to love my work and I want to do good work, but I am not happy when I am constantly racing against deadlines or I'm on the computer for really more than 6 hours a day. I mean, I often have to be on it more than 6 hours a day, but that's really so I had just gotten to this place where right? Like I said, like to get something off the ground, I've been thinking a little bit recently about how like it is the most entrepreneur thing to completely overestimate how much we can get done and underestimate how long it takes and then be frustrated that we can't do it all. And
Mhm.
why is that? And then I think about like when you're first getting started, the concept of like imagining something that doesn't exist and imagining and creating it into being does actually require you to detach from like the concept of your limitations, right? It's that energy of like, watch me, I will do it.
Mhm.
And that is sometimes what we need to get it off the ground. But then what happens is we get our, we're in fight or flight. And then that's just like where we operate. And that's what feels normal. And maybe even kind of somehow that's what feels safe, right?
Mhm.
Because if you take your foot off the gas, is it all going to fall apart? And so then, I've been really lucky. I've invested a lot in mentorship and coaching. And so I was hearing like what got you here won't get you there, and it's like I think a lot of people could probably relate to like when we understand something cognitively before we actually can embody it. So it was a couple years of like knowing but just not being in a place that I could actually change.
Mhm.
Um, and so, now I think, though, when you make a commitment to yourself, and right, if I go back to being connected to my why of the community I show up for and the team that I want to support and the workplace I want to create that is better than anything I had, and also wanting to prove that it can be done differently and like I can be happy within this, right? It's like I don't have a choice. I have to figure out how to do this in a way that's going to
Right.
feel better.
Yep.
Now it looks like I light candles for my calls, it's like, and it's one of the biggest shifts I've really made over the past several years. I mean, I even did something as drastic as to move time zones to support this.
Oh,
Was
really?
Yeah. So was flipping, and this was like 4 years ago, being like, man, like, what am I gonna do? So I went and I took a trip for like 6 weeks by myself, actually. I invited my husband, but he opted out. So I was by myself for 6 weeks. It was really one of the first times that in several years, or maybe my whole adult life, I could really just hear myself think. And what was unexpected was how much that new time zone really flipped my entire day on its head. And so, one of the biggest shifts that I've made that I think a lot of entrepreneurs really can make, you'll have a reaction to it at first, but that's the thing, is we are in charge of our own schedules and what we're crafting. One of the biggest changes I've made is that instead of working from the moment I wake up, because for many years it was like, wake up, grab the
Yep.
coffee, grab the
Yep.
laptop, don't stop. And then what's left over at the end of the day, right? Like I never did have the energy to do the thing that actually brought me joy at the end of the day. All I could do is just collapse. So the biggest shift that I've made is just reprioritizing my days. And at least 3 out of the 5 working days, I do not jump right into work. So the majority of
Mhm.
my days, I am journaling in the morning, working out, going snowboarding, going for a walk, playing with my dog, stretching. Like that stuff comes first. And then I can kind of move into my day from there. There's a lot of other like little stuff, but I
Yep.
feel like that's like the single most impactful thing I did to signal to like my body every day that like we're not living to work,
Yep.
and prioritizing my well-being is worth it in so many senses. And yeah, it's been a huge shift and just pays so many dividends.
I mean, the part about getting up, grabbing the coffee, and just getting to work, it's like when you have, especially when you have a team, you
Yeah.
have your own needs financially and business wise to meet, and then you're responsible for all of those. And it almost feels like taking care of yourself needs to go to the side, while maybe not necessarily while you take care of everyone else, but certainly while you take care of the business and get it to a certain point. And you mentioned in there, you had mentioned coaching and
Yeah.
practices. And I'm curious if you
Yeah.
could elaborate on what the most effective coaching is that you did. Because I know, like, if I mean, I shouldn't assume, but I know a lot of us are like coachy, we're doing this program, we're over here, we're buying this planner. I mean, that's really what a lot of the reason why I created Flamentum is because everybody is just so overwhelmed and inundated with self-help. And you actually helped me to like start reflecting on the term, the self-help industrial complex, because they're all about the social media industrial complex. So I'm curious.
They're everywhere.
The industrial, I mean, exactly. Everything is an industry. But what was the coaching, maybe modality or focus that you found to be the most effective in bringing more peace to your days?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So it's funny because the coaching container that I'm thinking of was the most expensive container I had ever joined. And in all honesty, it did not deliver in certain ways that it promised, which I think can become really distracting for people. And also, when you've invested in something, your job is to figure out what you're going to get out of it, right? And I remember saying to my husband, wow, I wasn't expecting in certain instances to be paying to learn what not to do, but I am. But, so there was some of that. But then also what I will say is what was delivered in this is that it was much more, the incompatibility between what I thought I was going to get and what I got. Like I thought I was going to get more, business scaling tactics and like actual strategy that I could like follow. I didn't get that. But what I got was a really great mindset coach who normalized. She definitely was the one that started talking to us about just like more spaciousness. What got you here won't get you there. I was in a container with a lot of folks who had reached 7 figures or more. And so then it really becomes about the environment, right? Sometimes I think environment is more important than coaching. Like we need to be in the room with people who interrupt us when we have, when we're talking, like speaking negative self-talk or negative beliefs into existence. Like we need to be around people that will interrupt that, because that is how we rewire our neural pathways, right? That is how we actually learn to start thinking differently in a way that can support the dream that we're trying to build. And so I think that if I were going to kind of turn that into advice, it's definitely when we're looking at a container that we're going to join, whether it's looking at the coaches and like, is that somebody that really, I think that just being in the room with them is going to help me start to think differently or take the next step and level up. That was really what it did for me. I can't believe how much my mind has changed. And for a long time, I remember like being like, man, like kind of like self-conscious, because I made some friends in this container who really did need to interrupt me quite a bit. Like I learned how much, self-deprecation, and sometimes I'll point to my like Irish heritage for that. I'm like, actually, it's just who I am. Okay. But in all seriousness, I think that environment and being around people who are saying, yes, you can do that. How can I help you? That is, I think, the single most important thing that we can get ourselves, into that environment to help support our growth.
Thank you. Absolutely. I actually remember the first time I had one of the women who I just interviewed, actually, we were talking, jamming, and she was like, Jen, how can I help? And I was like, it's like, thank you. So it's such a generous question. It's so beautiful. So you really can't always, we pay expensive prices for coaching, and a lot of the time, of course, it's contingent on how you work for it. But I'm with you. Like sometimes you're like, oh, okay, I want to do this differently. I want to do this differently. And sometimes that's the value that you can take away. So that's pretty cool. I wanted to come back to it because I've got the one moment in our call that you like kicked off with. It was so efficient and so heartfelt as well. Is you came in and you were like, how can how can I like relay the most like the nectar to you, as me being kind of like a fledgling founder with this offer. And you had said that with in the beginning of Strong Brand Social, one of the biggest failures of your business was doing multiple offers. And you said that it was so important to you that committing to it and sticking with it was like the one thing that you really wanted to lead with. So I have like two little sub questions for you on that, Katie. Entrepreneurial overwhelm, as we've kind of touched on a little bit, is just epidemic right now, and it's no joke. Like, I mean, I see all these memes like, oh, like ADHD, like making fun of it, and I'm like, record skip. Like, it is not funny. Like, our dreams are at stake, our health is at stake, the well-being of our families is at stake, not to mention the clients that could be benefiting from the work that we're doing. So as a successful founder who has reached many of her business goals and has a foundation and a team now, are you still overwhelmed?
I am not still overwhelmed. I can't believe I can say that. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
I feel like that's more important than any
Mhm.
financial milestone. You know what I mean?
Oh, girl. I'm like, oh, like Jen, don't cry.
You
Um,
know, you don't arrive. Like, if I'm
yeah,
being super transparent, right?
yeah,
It's like, but I
please.
will say, I just came back from a 9-day vacation. And to be as transparent as possible, that is, for 8 years, did not take a full week off. Like, I was on this vacation being
Wow.
like, have I done this? Like, I've definitely taken 4 days into a weekend, but have I actually taken a full week off with weekends on both sides? And like, I haven't. It took a really long time. And when I came back, my team was pacing ahead of goals, and I worked 6-hour days the week I got back. And I was like, I've made it. Now, I don't think that you ever arrive. Like, these, like, our business growth cycles,
Mhm,
there's
mhm.
this, especially when you're bootstrapping, right? It's like when you're alone, it's overwhelming. Then you get your first employee, and immediately you have less on your plate, and it feels like you can take a deep breath, and then you take on more work. And then it's always feels a little 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But there is something about this particular moment that has everything to do with how strong my team is, and they deserve the credit, but that,
Incredible.
like, I feel like I'm at a really big turning point with
Wow.
feeling like I can do this. It's the best job I've ever had, and I can say no to enough things that protect my quality of life and keep me calm.
Brilliant. Wow.
Yeah. It's possible.
It is possible. And that's what we're working towards. And there's this
Yeah.
like this mindset component that's so important. And I think like just kind of like arriving here at the end of this conversation, and I'm so grateful for, for your time and for being open to doing this. And I think, just sharing, like, really, like, there's so many of your clients, there's so many of people who are watching us right now. And it's like, should I keep going or should I just try to get a job? And I think that's what was so encouraging to me. And I am kind of actually, I think there's like almost like a combination of there's a couple of questions that I had left, but where we are right now, I'm curious that if you were to sit across from someone that that you care about so much, one of your clients, you're like, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be successful. What is the one message that you would leave them with? Like and I know there's like a little bit of pressure with this question, but what would you boil it down to? The one thing that you would recommend to help them have more peace in their days?
Can I can I do more than one thing? Just maybe two
Please.
or three. I'm
Absolutely. Yeah.
thinking, like, the first one that I've mentioned is really connecting to your why, right? So, like,
Mhm.
knowing and taking the time to write down. I really love the future pacing exercise of like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, describing a day in your life. How does it feel? What are you doing? What are you working on? Where do you live? What did you eat? Like, going into crystal clear detail, because that is something I did from day one. And so that really helped me connect with, like, what's at stake for me
Mhm.
personally? What is
Mhm.
my personal, like, why? And then also, inherently for me, that became also the why for my impact. So what did I want to provide as a workplace, or how did I want to leave the industry? What did I want to be able to provide for my family? I went back and read that so many times over the years, when things got hard. So I think
Mhm.
that's like number one, number one. And then something that I think we wanted to get more into potentially is just this idea of, like, where the last question started was doing less, like less offers, right? And because I think what happens is, like, in our first year of entrepreneurship, when we're trying to find product market fit, we do have to potentially say yes to a lot of different things because
Yeah.
we're trying to find the thing. But then we get stuck there. And it's really, really scary for entrepreneurs to then say, okay, I'm going to go focus on this one thing. Like, this is my signature offer, and I'm going to figure out how to get people into it. And I'm going to figure out how to get people results in it. And I'm going to figure out how to get them to stay in it. And I think it's one part, like a lot of us are neurodivergent, and one part is that's just like really inherent to entrepreneurship, is that that's what it took to get started. And then also that's what our industry is teaching. I think, if I'm being super transparent,
Yes.
because it's easier to teach you how to like launch new things to a list to get that instant hit of the sale.
Yeah.
But like then that just leaves you a few months from now needing to create something brand new to sell it to the same people, instead of like going in on what is your legacy offer? Like, what is the single most impactful way you can serve your clients? And if you really answer that question, like, there's a lot of work there to do, right? Years, probably. I mean, Strong Brand Social Club is a few years old, and we are deep, deep, deep. And like, I just got off a call of revising and improving and optimizing the curriculum inside there and how we can provide better support. Like, this will keep us busy for as long as we're alive. And the best gift I've given myself is just like each year over the last few years being like, no, I'm not doing that too. No, I'm not doing that too. It's just this thing. And it just, for some reason, that's really scary for us. But that is like the single most, after really staying connected to your why, that has been for me the single most impactful thing when it comes to feeling like I can serve at the highest level, feeling like I can live a life that feels good, feeling like I can be a good leader to my team because I'm regulated and have the bandwidth to be that leader, you know? So it's a little bit contrarian, but the single signature offer, going all in, optimizing instead of constantly creating and opening new loops is really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned at one point, constantly finding yourself back at the starting line. And I think that's something that a lot of us are just like, oh my gosh. So staying connected to your why. And what I'm hearing is like, everything connects with that one offer that you're going to follow through on is aligned with creating that piece and creating the impact that you want. So just brilliant, Katie. Thank you so much. Thank you. So where can everyone find you, and what would you recommend in terms of like, where can they start to align their business goals with their social strategy?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for asking. Strongbrandssocial.com, Instagram, /StrongBrandSocial. Those are all great places to start. You'll find our We've got 2 offers, to be fair. The first starting point is F the Algorithm, which is our workshop. We'll show you how to map your content to your business goals, and then tell you about Strong Brand Social Club, where you are with us from there.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much. And thank you for doing the work and for having founders and people that are also trying to make an impact, having those people in mind. And then thank you for prioritizing yourself and for, making sure that you're regulated to show up for that incredible team of yours. I'm so grateful to have this time with you, Katie.
Thank you so much, Jen. I could talk to you for hours, so this was really a treat. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have our founder to founder call coming up, so I'm excited for that. And yes. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Amazing. Thank you, Jen. I'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.